It is episode 137 of Decoding Fox News, and I'm your host, Juliet Jeske. Each week I watch and analyze a whole heck of a lot of Fox News and then break it down. I watch all the Fox News you'd never want to. We're a week away from an election and I'm losing my mind. I openly admit this. Let's get into it. A McDonald's Nothingburger with a side of fascism.
Or as The Atlantic put it, quote, Donald Trump is speaking like Hitler, Stalin, and Mussolini.
So they have all the psyops of the media now comparing him to Hitler, to Mussolini, and Stalin.
Trump is Hitler, and you know he's now fascist. So
Hitler, Stalin, Mussolini, and on. And of course, Mussolini and Hitler and Stalin.
The bottom line, you can't be Hitler and do that. So the voters see how much they were lied to when they see stuff like this. It's like finding out Darth Vader is your dad. He's a threat to democracy. He's like Hitler, which we saw again this week, even though he was almost murdered because of that 3 months ago.
Oh, and have supporters comparing Donald Trump to Hitler and to Stalin and to Mussolini. And of course, he's racist. Harris herself used a years-old, corroborated, bogus accusation from a former disgruntled chief of staff to compare Donald Trump to Adolf Hitler. The Atlantic actually compared Trump to Hitler, Stalin, and Mussolini. And needless to say, the melodramatic comparisons to Hitler, they are falling flat. Trump is Hitler, he's Stalin, he's Mussolini. If you're willing to compare Donald Trump to Hitler and Stalin and Mussolini, you're willing to say or do anything. So if you're willing to call somebody or compare them to Stalin, Hitler, and Mussolini.
Hitler or a or authoritarian.
Donald Trump is Hitler and he's a fascist. Donald Trump is a fascist and a Nazi, and that her surrogates are claiming that she's Stalin and Hitler and Mussolini. We have
Trump is a fascist. He's Hitler.
So we can expect more of the calling Trump a racist, calling him a Nazi, calling him a fascist.
But calling somebody evil like that, a Nazi, a fascist, comparing them to Stalin, Mussolini, Hitler.
The bottom line is keep bringing up fascist, keep bringing up the fact that Donald Trump is Hitler, and watch the numbers go south.
Dems are pulling out their most desperate move in the Democratic playbook, calling Donald Trump Hitler.
There's an old expression, if it looks like a duck, swims like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. Now just replace duck with fascist, and I think we're on the same page here with John F. Kelly, but we'll get into that in a second. I already revealed it too much by saying John F. Kelly. A couple things in that montage that were very funny to me. Finding out your dad is Darth Vader. Yeah, Greg Gutfeld said that. He was saying that Trump's not Hitler. In fact, seeing Trump work at McDonald's is like finding out your dad is Darth Vader. And I thought, have you seen The Empire Strikes Back? I don't think you have. Next, Sean Hannity calling anyone else melodramatic is just funny. That's just funny. That's like Judge Jeanine calling someone loud. That's what that is. Okay. I posted a montage, quick, that wasn't even a montage. It was a section of his monologue from last week today on the Twitter, where he was basically like, everything's going to hell. And then he ended it with like, and you can't even get laundry detergent. And I'm like, wow, Sean Hannity, just get a grip. Anyway, here we go. So last week on Fox News, Donald J. Trump was lauded as a political genius for cosplaying as a minimum wage worker at McDonald's franchise, while the New York Times published an audio interview of General John F. Kelly describing Trump as a fascist and admirer of Hitler. Kelly also said that Trump had no understanding of the Constitution or the concept of the rule of law. Although Kelly is a highly decorated four-star retired Marine Corps general, the folks at Fox reduced him to a disgruntled former employee. Kelly was Trump's longest-serving chief of staff and the former Homeland Security Secretary. Fox decided to bury the story in a heap of French fries prepared by the same wannabe dictator Kelly was trying to warn the American public about. The word Hitler appeared 79 times, while McDonald's was uttered 111 times last week. Major story. It was a major story on Fox. Several Fox News hosts clutched their pearls to dust as they feigned offense that anyone would call Trump a fascist, even though Trump often refers to both Harris and Biden as fascist, Marxist, communists, and threats to democracy. The word fascist appeared 49 times in last week's transcripts. Trump is also fond of using the terms sick, twisted, and evil to describe his political opponents, while he claims America is a failing nation. Anyone exclusively watching Fox News last week might not have known that a severe tropical storm caused destructions, mudslides, and major flooding in the Philippines, or that President Biden made a formal apology to survivors and descendants of the brutal Indian boarding school program. The shows I covered last week were Fox and Friends, The Five, and Hannity. So technically I only hit my 15 hours, but I also went through with a fine-tooth comb, fact-checking and analyzing the epic 3-hour bromance between Joe Rogan. The Joe Rogan Experience is actually the name of his podcast, and Donald J. Trump. I still have no idea why that man has any appeal. It was beyond boring and crazy and stupid. I'm hoping to do a podcast on that, which will be for everyone. The bulk of that monster-sized article is blocked by paywall because I kind of have to do that when I put that much effort into something. It's just epic. It's epic. I went through the whole freaking thing. There are some sections in it that are just mind-blowing. I might actually cut them up and just focus on sections of it because it's really a window into that man's mind. It doesn't make any sense. Just really stupid. Side note, somebody on Threads tried to say, oh, but I watched the first hour of it, and here's my recommendation. And I said, if you only watch the first hour, you have no idea. Because the second and third hour got weirder. It just got weirder and weirder. They were talking about the JFK files, the assassination of John F. Kennedy, and like what happened, and Trump was implying that, I'm going to release these files. There's a bunch of nonsense. They started talking about UFOs. Trump told a story about being on a plane where he claimed, I did not believe a word of this stupid story. He claimed that they flew him into like an active war zone just so he could sit down and talk with generals about, I don't know, how to get rid of ISIS, which he did not get rid of. Anyway, crazy story. Totally, completely unbelievable. Because I'm like, dude, no one's going to put the president in harm's way like that. Number two, there's this thing called the Situation Room. You could talk to anyone, anywhere in the world. Shut up. Anyway, I'm just losing my mind. It was so stupid. But anyway, and I still have to go through, again, with a fine-tooth comb, the Madison Square Garden appearance. I'm hopefully going to be writing something about that. And the work is just piling up this week. It's just nonstop. I won't get into it. It's nuts. It's going to drive me nuts. It's just all this extra stuff because of the election. Buckle up, guys. We're going to do our best. Here we go. So Jesse Waters didn't seem to realize that Trump also calls people fascists. Like, they're all getting so worked up about John F. Kelly, a decorated 4-star general. What does that mean? Nothing. It means everything. Anyway, that this decorated 4-star general would be like, yeah, Trump's a fascist and he's scaring me, and that's why I'm doing this interview. I wish he would do a television press conference. Please, John F. Kelly, please. But whatever. He did the interview. It's better than nothing, I guess. But anyway, so this is, everybody on Fox lost their mind. My frantic energy right now is pretty similar to how they were reacting on Fox. So here we are. This is from Thursday on The Five. Jesse Waters getting all bent out of shape over the word fascist.
Because if Trump does win, then she's going to have to certify a fascist.
Right.
She's going to have to gavel a fascist into office. What, are they just going to hand the keys to the White House to Hitler?
Yeah.
Are you
So
saying
they're either going to rise up and go nuts on the streets, Jessica, or they're just going to certify him like he's Mitt Romney and admit the whole thing was baloney. Mm-hmm. And that's probably what's going to happen. The whole thing was baloney. You can't even define fascism. I challenge Kamala to tell us what it is, because a majority of the country doesn't know the word. She needs non-college educated blacks, whites, and Hispanics to turn out for her. And she is smearing her rival as with a mid-20th century European political philosophy. Okay,
Do you think
Jessica?
people don't know what Hitler is?
She's calling him a fascist. Go out on the street, ask 20 people what that means,
send Johnny
Jessica.
on the
Okay, the following is just a quick little montage of Trump calling other people fascists from various rallies. Here we go.
Joe is weak. He's only good at cheating on elections, but it's not him. He's surrounded by fascists around the Oval Office. It's not him. Every time the radical left Democrats, Marxists, communists, and fascists indict me, I consider it a great badge of honor. I am being indicted for you. We will cast out the communists, Marxists, and fascists. We will throw off the sick political class that hates our country, and we will rout the fake news media. We will drain the swamp. Every time the radical left Democrats, Marxists, communists, and fascists indict me, I consider it a great badge of honor. Great badge of honor. Because I'm being indicted for you, and never forget, our enemies want to take away my freedom because I will never let them take away your freedom. I don't think Biden has any idea what the hell's happening. But it's from the fascists that circle in the Oval Office. They circle the resolute desk, the beautiful resolute desk.
I'll briefly explain where those clips came from. The first one was May 11th from a rally in Wildwood, New Jersey, where they massively overinflated his crowd size. The second one was from probably one of his more memorable rallies because his teleprompters didn't work and he went right off the rails, from Dayton, Ohio, March 16th, 2024. And the last one, the reason why the audio sounds crazy, that was a statement he made after court, criminal court, I will add, in Manhattan, from May 14th, 2024. I sat through several Trump rallies with a fine-tooth comb, going over them sometimes multiple times. The man uses heated language for everyone and everything. You aren't just, his opponent. You're evil, you're sick, you're twisted, you're dark, you have horrible motivations, you're stupid, you want to destroy the country. That's how he talks about people. So when they clutch their pearls, like, how dare you? There were assassination attempts. And they kept saying that as well. You'll hear that later. It's just, what? I can't. The man is part of the problem. He does nothing but use heated rhetoric. So anyway, this McDonald's thing, which was basically how Fox tried to cover up and hide the Nazi thing. So on October 20th, Donald J. Trump learned how to prepare and serve fries at a McDonald's franchise in Feasterville, Pennsylvania. For the stunt, the former president wore a McDonald's apron and handed pre-screened Trump supporters orders through the drive-in window. The store was closed for the day to allow Trump to pretend that he was a McDonald's employee for a few minutes. At the end of the event, Trump boasted that he'd worked at McDonald's 15 minutes longer than Vice President Kamala had. Harris has stated that she worked at a McDonald's franchise briefly while she was in law school in 1983. Trump has repeatedly made false claims about Harris's employment at the fast food chain. Harris hasn't produced any actual evidence that she worked a low-wage job 41 years ago, but most Americans would be hard-pressed if they had to come up with proof of a summer job they had 4 decades earlier. I couldn't. There's no way. No way. So no one with the Trump campaign has come up with anything that would support their claim that Harris is lying. So it's like, okay, she doesn't have any evidence, but they don't either. So Fox News celebrated Trump's bizarre stunt as brilliant political theater. The overpaid propagandists also appear to follow a script of sorts, and you're going to hear that. Now, this starts on Monday, and we're just going to go rapid fire. These clips go Monday through Thursday, and I'd rather not interrupt them. I'd rather let you just hear this. It's bonkers. This is definitely not spontaneous, just thoughts popping into people's head. I do not believe that for a moment. So again, this is Ansley Einhart's going to start this from Fox and Friends. Here we go.
But when you look at Donald Trump, he's at McDonald's, he's at the Steelers game, he's at the barbershop with Lawrence.
There was a barbershop in the Bronx with Fox and Friends, a Steelers football game, and a McDonald's in the battleground of Pennsylvania.
And that is engaging with people, whether it's in a barbershop, McDonald's, or just showing up at a Steelers Jets game where the crowds go crazy.
He does love McDonald's. So do I. Anyway, no scripts, no teleprompter. A tie, an apron, a fry machine. Trump got to meet workers, talk to supporters, poke some fun at Kamala Harris, and the people of Pennsylvania, they were really happy to see him. And then on Sunday night, he headed all across the state to Pittsburgh for a sold-out primetime Steelers game.
And then you see him at McDonald's, which I think is one of the best moments I've ever seen in retail politics. And then you see him go to the Steelers game, and this all comes after the Al Smith dinner. But then
he's the joy candidate. Al Smith dinner, McDonald's over the weekend, Jet-Steeler game on Sunday night.
So I'm not sure what happened there, but Kayleigh McEnany was the first to break off barbershop and substitute Al Smith dinner. And then Joe Concha did the exact same thing, where he said McDonald's, Steelers game, Al Smith dinner. And I have to have a moment of time to talk about the Al Smith dinner. I couldn't fit it in the last podcast, but this has been driving me batty. So Fox News acts as if, and they've actually said, people on Fox News have said, that by Kamala Harris snubbing the Al Smith dinner, she's offended millions of Catholics. And I just roll my eyes and go, are you freaking kidding me? Now, my parents, and this is why I'm going to share this with you, I also think it's funny, but my parents are hardcore Catholics. The type of people who, when they go on vacation, they plan their vacations about where they can go to Catholic Mass. They never miss it. Like, they don't miss it. They took us to all the holy days of obligation, including holy days of obligation that were pre-Vatican II. If you're a Catholic, you know what I just said there. It's a little like, what? Anyway, we did the blessing of the throats. Catholics know what I'm talking about. That is a weird one where they put candles on your neck. I'm not kidding. And my parents, when we were small children, and I'm talking like under the age of 10, used to put us in their car in the Pinto. We had a Pinto. I don't know how we survived. We had a Pinto, like, station wagon situation, and they put us in the back of the car, and we drive to Belleville, Illinois, to go visit a shrine called Lady of Our Snows. Now, Lady of Our Snows, again, these are small children. Was there a playground? I don't remember it. I don't remember a playground. I do remember an amphitheater and a museum and a bunch of grottos that were made, outdoor grottos, where we would go and just look at the Virgin Mary. And they had different themed grottos, but that was Lady of Our Snows. And it was relatively close to where we lived because Belleville's right across the river from St. Louis. But it was always like, what are we doing? Sometimes they had like events for children, which were fun. We saw Jesus Christ Superstar there, I think. I remember something. I don't know. We had some things that were like age appropriate, but we were usually dragged there just because, you know, it's a day off. We're going to Lady of Our Snows. Really? My parents went to the airport to see a statue and brought us. We saw a mass once in the hockey stadium with all the hockey accoutrement still up, including the plexiglass. Hardcore Catholics. So I only mention this because, at least in the Midwest where I grew up, with crazy Catholic parents in a city that has 800,000 Catholics in it, which is St. Louis. It's a very, very Catholic city, very German Catholic city. I don't know if I ever heard the term Al Smith dinner uttered once by anyone. It just wasn't a thing. If you or your family have benefited from the charity raised by the Al Smith dinner, that's wonderful. I'm very happy for you. I just don't think nationally it means that much to the larger Catholic community. Other things do, like the Pope is huge, archbishops all over the place, the various charities. Al Smith, I don't know. I'd never heard of it until I moved here. So, but yeah, Fox acts like everybody's deeply, deeply offended. I would disagree with that. And even though my parents are hardcore Catholic, they're both huge Kamala Harris supporters. So there you are. Anyway, this next clip is from The Five. This is Jesse Waters. I want to give you a heads up. It can be a little upsetting. There's going to be some January 6th footage in this. So just a little bit of a trigger warning there. Here we go.
He genuinely likes McDonald's. This is not a secret.
Dana, he likes the people at McDonald's more than he likes Mike Pence. These
rioters chanted, "Hang Mike Pence." The President of the United States, Donald Trump, said that, quote, "Mike deserves it," and that those rioters were not doing anything wrong. This is a sentiment that he has expressed at other times as well. In an interview with ABC News correspondent Jonathan Karl, President Trump was asked about the supporters chanting "Hang Mike Pence" last year. Instead of condemning them, the former president defended them.
Because it's common sense, John. It's common sense that you're supposed to protect. How can you, if you know a vote is fraudulent, right?
Yeah.
How can you pass on a fraudulent vote to Congress?
President Trump's view that the rioters were not doing anything wrong and that, quote, Mike deserved it, helps us to understand why the president did not ask the rioters to leave the Capitol for multiple hours. In fact, he put this tweet out at 2:24 p.m.
Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done to protect our country and our Constitution, giving states a chance to certify a corrected set of facts, not the fraudulent or inaccurate ones which they were asked to previously certify. U.S. demands the truth.
Every time I revisit that, and I do quite often for various videos that I make critiquing Fox, that footage, I just am chilled to my bone. And I just think, J.D. Vance, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? What happened to Mike Pence? We came so close, a hair's breadth away from an elected official being harmed or killed that day. We are lucky the death toll was as low as it was. 140 officers were injured. Some of those injuries were very severe. And they're just like, whatever. It's just a protest, got out of hand. What? Just unbelievable. And it reminds me of, there was a TV show in the, I guess it was late 80s, called V, about aliens who came to Earth and they were lizard people. I'm laughing, but it was a classic if you were a kid. It was hardcore classic, must-see TV. And they were humans that sided with the aliens. And I always went like, come on. When I was a child, I didn't understand this. I said, come on, who would be that stupid? Now as an adult, I'm like, yeah, I totally get that. I totally get that there'd be people that would be like, oh, I could make a deal with the aliens. J.D. Vance, who probably thinks, he can handle it. He can handle it until Trump doesn't need him anymore and throws him under the bus. Just saying, kind of nuts. Now, we're still on this McDonald's thing, but that's all they talked about. It was a big story last week. But Richard Fowler, who is a liberal, he's a black gay man who is sometimes sits in for the Jessica Tarloff chair, which is also sometimes occupied by Harold Ford Jr. I see a lot of promise in Richard Fowler. He is relatively new to this position at Fox. He's getting more and more confident as he's appearing more often. Tarloff has grown tremendously in the past 2 years since I started decoding Fox News. I've seen so much growth. She used to be more timid and polite. Now she's just like, bah, which I love. So anyway, moving on. This is Richard Fowler pointing out a huge flaw in this whole, I'm down with people, I'm a populist, look at me at McDonald's. Here we go. And this is from Monday.
I think a couple of things. One, I thought it was a good move for him to go to the McDonald's. I do think there's a juxtaposition between going to the McDonald's and actually connecting with the folks who work at the McDonald's. There was once a time in the 1980s when Kamala Harris worked at McDonald's. She did it in a semester while she was at Howard University, where, that's what folks did. They went home from college, worked at McDonald's, made some extra money to pay for books. I think in today's day and age, there's a lot of working families that depend on a McDonald's salary to make ends meet, to pay the mortgage, to pay the rent. And I think, in 2019, Kamala Harris was on the strike lines with McDonald's workers demanding higher wages. Also, in 2016, Donald Trump said he was going to raise the minimum wage when he was president. And in the 4 years, he didn't do that. And so I think there's a juxtaposition of him doing this photo op versus actually standing with workers at McDonald's. And I think this comes at a unique time in the country where we've seen both red states and blue states alike, voters in these states go to the ballot box and say, we want to raise the minimum wage. In Montana, voters voted to raise the minimum wage. In Arizona, voters voted to raise the minimum wage. In Florida, voters voted to raise the minimum wage. In Arkansas, voters voted to raise the minimum wage. So it's about time in this country that our lawmakers catch up with that and we finally raise the federal minimum wage, which is what the Harris campaign is advocating for.
So this next clip is a woman named Olivia Rinaldi of CBS News. She's a reporter. She was at the McDonald's. Trump is leaning his head out of the drive-through window, and she asks him a question. The audio is not that great, so I'm just going to read it for you. She basically says, are you in favor of raising the minimum wage? And this is Trump's answer.
Minimum wage should be raised.
Well, I think these people who work hard, they're great. And I just saw a process that's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to see. These are great franchises, and
produce a lot of jobs, and it's great. And great people working here, too.
But minimum wage is
Increased.
So, yes, ma'am.
So this is what he actually said. Well, I think this. I think these people who work hard, they're great. And I just saw something. A process that is beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to see. These are great franchises and produce a lot of jobs. And it's great. And great people working here too. Okay, so terrible grammar. And he didn't answer her question. My theory with this is that Trump just really wanted to make fries at a McDonald's, and that he always wanted to work at a McDonald's since he was a little kid, and he got jealous of the fact that Kamala Harris said she worked at a McDonald's, so this is it. That's it. Because none of this makes any sense, because this is the dumbest thing that they're attacking her for. It's completely inane. I've had so many bad jobs, and I'm like, I don't remember where I worked or all of them and all of that nonsense. But anyway, that's my theory. But yeah, he didn't answer that question at all. So I should take this time very quickly to give a shout out to my sponsor, since I'm about halfway through. And that sponsor would be the readers of my Substack newsletter and the listeners of this podcast, in addition to my Patreon supporters. How can you become a Patreon supporter? You can go to Patreon for Decoding Fox News. You go to my Substack for Decoding Fox News. I also have a linked tree, whatever you call it, on the bio for my Twitter, also known as X profile, and that will also take you to Venmo. Somebody asked me to announce the Venmo because he thanked me for doing that once, and he donated via Venmo. Thank you very much. So that's about it. All paid subscribers and paid supporters get exclusive content. If you can't afford, I totally understand. I don't subscribe too much because I can't afford it. But the next best thing to do is share the podcast, share the newsletter, tell your friends. That always helps. And my cats are making a lot of noise right now. They're driving me crazy. You might have just heard Thor. He's the one that meows. Odin never meows. They're the mascots of the podcast. Also, if you're new to the Decoding Fox News podcast, this is a one-woman show, meaning it's me, a laptop, and a dream in a 450 square foot apartment, which is why I can't put the cats in another room, because there is no room. It's one room. Okay, it's very normal for New York. But people will give me tips all the time about stuff online, and I'm like, yeah, I don't have the space for that. And they're like, oh, you could. I'm like, I really, you have no idea. Picture your entire life, everything you own, everything you've ever owned in 450 square feet with 2 cats and furniture. Thank you. Okay, next up, I'm a tiny home, but in a building with other tiny homes, concept. Anyway, moving on. These clips are kind of backwards, but there's a reason why I did it this way, because I want to feature Fox at the top, and then we're going to go backwards and kind of explain what they're doing. So 2 weeks ago, Trump appeared on Sunday Morning Futures with Maria Bartiromo, and she's another one. I don't really cover her because she's on the weekends, but Maria Bartiromo, she's almost as funny as Judge Jeanine, but it's a different Maria Bartiromo. She's got a crazy voice, and it's also like cuts right through you. But anyway, Trump is having this interview with Maria Bartiromo, and he says something absolutely alarming, where he basically says, we got to worry about the enemy within. I will add, in the Joe Rogan podcast, which is why I want to go through it as a separate podcast of my own for Decoding Fox News. If I have time, I'm holding on for dear life this week. Holding on for dear life. But one of the things that he repeats throughout that podcast, Donald J. Trump does, is that the enemy within is more dangerous than dictators. He says it multiple times. The enemy from within, meaning people who don't like him, people who are critical of him, are more dangerous to this country than Kim Jong-un or Vladimir Putin, whomever. That's terrifying. But that's what he says. He says it throughout Joe Rogan's podcast. It's subtle, but I picked up on it. So we're going to go backwards. So Tuesday, this is from last week. This is Ansley Einhart, and you're going to hear Brian Kilmeade as well, trying to justify the statement that he made on Maria Bartiromo's show. And they actually also read a statement by Trump from the Wall Street Journal of him trying to kind of clean up this mess. Here we go.
The military thing, he's going to use the military to go against his enemies. It's not true, and he explained what he means by it.
So this is a Wall Street Journal quote we just pulled. It says, I never said I would use the military. Biden said that he expects there to be a lot of trouble if I win the election. That's where this came from. If you're talking about you're going to have riots in the streets, you would certainly bring the National Guard. So I'm not talking about in cases like where you need help. You can't say I'll never bring in everything as the entire country is disappearing in bedlam, but certainly not against my opponents. It's against civil unrest.
So that was Brian Kilmeade reading Trump's statement directly from the Wall Street Journal. Now, so we go back, instead of going back 2 weeks, we're going to go back a week. Sunday, October 20th, the same day, he probably pre-taped it, but this was the same day as the McDonald's incident that they, made out to be a major story. Trump appeared on another show on Fox called Media Buzz that is hosted by a man named Howard Kurtz. I don't know how many people watch this show. It doesn't get a lot of fanfare. It's been on for a long time. So this is Trump also trying to explain that statement he made to Maria Bartiromo, but he doubles down. He doesn't soften it at all. This is the clip.
The outside people, the so-called enemies, if they're enemies, and they might not be enemies, if you have a smart president, they can be handled. But when you have people investigating my campaign, when you have people, they spied on my campaign now. You understand that. That's been proven. But they spy on your campaign. The Russia hoax was all made up, and now it's acknowledged that it was made up. All of these different things. You have the 51 different agents saying it was from Russia, and now they all say it wasn't from Russia. Okay, so we were lying. Many other things, many. I could go over. You just don't have enough time. But what they've done is so terrible. Who's ever heard of anything like this? Adam Shifty Schiff, he's a crooked guy. He's a crooked politician, 100%. And he's going to be a senator now. Can you believe it?
But again, he's a political opponent of yours.
He's not
an enemy.
No, of course he's an enemy. He's an enemy.
So what he said there is absolutely terrifying. He actually has just made his original statement worse, which we're about to hear. So basically what Trump is saying is the duly elected official representing a congressional district in California is an enemy. An enemy. He doesn't say that's no, he says he was asked point blank by Howard Kurtz to soften what he just said, and he doubled down. Terrifying. That is terrifying. Now, he's also falsely claimed for years that the Obama administration spied on his campaign. I don't have time to open that up because that's a whole other thing. There's a hyperlink in the newsletter that explains that is complete nonsense. It's not true. He keeps saying it. They say it on Fox. It doesn't make it true. You can keep repeating it. It's not true. Now, here's the original clip that he made with Maria Bartiromo. It's actually not as bad as the one I just played, but this is what started this whole enemies from within. Now, he's also made this statement in his rallies. And like I said, he just said it with this crazy extended, extremely long interview with Joe Rogan. Here we go. This is from October 14th.
Joe Biden said he doesn't think it's going to be a peaceful election day.
Well, he doesn't have any idea what's happening in all fairness. He spends most of his day sleeping. I think the bigger problem is the enemy from within, not even the people that have come in and destroying our country. By the way, totally destroying our country. The towns, the villages, they're being inundated. But I don't think they're the problem in terms of election day. I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military, because they can't let that happen.
That original answer sounds closer to civil unrest, but he doesn't specifically say that, and it is ambiguous, and it is incredibly troubling. And then a week later, when Kurtz talks to him, he says, oh yeah, my enemy would be Representative Adam Schiff, probably soon to be Senator Adam Schiff. That is a duly elected representative chosen by the people of his district, or in a week, his state, the largest state in the country, that's his enemy. That's disturbing. That's horrible. It's terrifying. And I just want to say this because I purposely picked two clips at the end here that are funny because it's somebody yelling for an extended period of time to Sean Hannity. And it's always entertaining when we see that. I just want to say this very quickly. We might be in for a very rough week. I don't know. Next week. It might be. I have no idea. I'm anxious. I'm filled with anxiety. I'm incredibly worried. Decoding Fox News will not crumble. I will double down. I am committed to fighting back against if we get stuck with a Donald J. Trump presidency again. I will fight back against this misinformation, disinformation, propaganda with every molecule of my being. I will not give up. Just like I know you will not give up. This audience will not give up. You're smart. You're well-read. You know everything backward and forward. And we will not give up. If that means we, and I know our reps won't. If this happens again, I know the Democrats in the House and Senate will fight back. They will fight back with everything they have in them. The governors will fight back. I have faith in the system, but we are perilously close. And I had a terrible experience when I went to vote in my district because there was some sort of problem because of jury duty and there was a clerical error and they turned me into two people. I had to get it fixed. That changed my address slightly, the apartment number, I'm not making this up, and they bumped me off the voter rolls because of this. They had me sign an affidavit ballot. They felt sorry for me because I started crying. It's a blue state. I'm not worried that New York's going to go red. But I started crying because I just said fascist out loud. I'm here to stop the fascist. It's hand to God that happened. And I don't mind being vulnerable and telling you this. It was a dark day. I couldn't even come down from that for like a solid day. I was terrified that my vote's not going to count because of a stupid error somebody made somewhere. They found me in the system. They said, oh, you voted in April in the primary. I said, yes, it's hopefully going to get resolved. I did an affidavit ballot. That's what we call provisional ballots in New York State. Regardless. I believe in you. I believe in this country. Get out and vote. Tell your friends to vote, especially young people. Take them to the polls if necessary. We are in a dark time, but we could turn this around. I believe in this country, and I believe in our democracy. That being said, Thursday, Sean Hannity thought it was a good idea to bring on Sean A. Smith of ESPN. They are friends. Smith had made some comments about Obama's remarks to black male voters. He wasn't fond of them. So Sean thought this would be this great, wonderful opportunity. Sean misjudged this completely. So again, Thursday, Stephen A. Smith, also broadcaster, ESPN, and Hannity discussing Kamala Harris. Here you go.
For over 4 years, I said it before the 2020 election. Kamala to this day say, oh, Joe was really cognitively alert. You know that's a crock. I know that's a crock.
What is she supposed to say, Sean?
Knows it's a crock. Not Donald Trump.
Sean, what is it? Hold on. What is she supposed to say? She's supposed to sit up there and say, you know what, my president, my boss.
Truth.
I mean, there was cognitive decline there. No, you're not. No, you don't do that.
Show?
You don't dime out your boss. You don't. Listen, I do tell the truth on my show, but guess what? So I said I do. What I said, however, is that I'm not going to dime out my boss if that's my boss. Go ahead.
Whoa, hang on a second. You know what? I have never watched you hold back. You say what you mean. You mean what you say. That's my point. She is. But she knew he was a cognitive mess, and now she's lying. Oh no, I never noticed it. It's a crock.
Sean,
it's a lie.
Because Sean, what you're trying to
it's a lie.
Because what people. But because what, listen, I personally, a year earlier, I was saying there's slippage, there's something that ain't there. He ain't going to make it to the election. Y'all better get with the program, do something about it. I was on the record about Joe Biden, but I'm not a part of the Biden administration. And if I was a part of the Biden administration, I wouldn't have told you that. That's number one. Number two, she's the candidate now. You got to run against her. Are you going to beat her, Sean? Are you going to beat her? Are you going to beat her?
It's a straight up. It's straight up. The American people.
Are you as confident as you were months ago?
The biggest choice election in a lifetime.
I see some slippage on his part.
Stephen A.
So he just said that Trump is slipping, cognitive decline. Also, I wanted somebody to say that to somebody on Fox for, 2 years, because this idea that the vice president would somehow go rogue and be like, he's losing it. In a country where the vice president traditionally always just supports the president, we don't have adversarial vice presidents. Had she done that, they'd be like, oh, she's a tyrant. She just wants to take the presidency away from him. Of course they would. Now, here's the next one. This is simply called I Want to Retort. They're not talking over each other. This is more of a monologue. Also, Stephen A. Smith.
I like you so much.
Can I retort? Let me retort. Fair enough.
Okay.
You didn't even bring up fracking. You didn't even bring up the border. That's absolutely a valid point on your part. What she's doing now is saying, excuse me, I'm open to compromise. I'm willing to work across the aisle. I'm willing to listen and make things happen. Now, you have a lot of people who are going to vote for Trump, and they absolutely positively believe he will change Washington. The question is, will it be for better or will it be for worse? The cesspool that we look at as the nation's capital, if you got him back in office and he's on a revenge tour and he's not focused on doing what it takes to lead the country, where will that lead the country? You're not bringing that part up. So again, we might not like something on the left. We might not like something on the right. These are the two candidates that we've got to work with. And when you bring up issues in terms of character or in terms of being truthful or whatever, let me tell you something right now. You can bring a whole bunch of Republicans and I'll be cool with it. You can't bring up Trump to make a case against somebody else using those arguments. You can't do that.
Look, you know what? I'm predicting that privately you're going to vote for Trump.
Oh, never. Never. And I told you I'm on the record. I'd have voted almost for any Republican but him.
Ladies and gentlemen, Stephen A. Smith. You know what I'd love to see? I'd love to see, again, no physical hurt, nobody physically hurting each other. Just verbal. But I'd love to see a verbal cage match between Stephen A. Smith and Judge Jeanine, because you know how that would go. I'm Judge Jeanine. Just shut up and let me talk. Hey, listen, I was a prosecutor. Where are my dogs? I'm throwing a pen. How dare you? Listen, I like Oreo cookies and York peppermint patties. And Donald J. Trump is a decent human being who saved my ex-husband from going to prison. Oh, no, he pardoned him. He was already out of prison for being a crook. It's true. All of that is true. Also, because, wait, hi, Odin. Odin is making an appearance, ladies and gentlemen. He usually does at the end of the podcast. He's like, wrap it up, lady. Wrap it up. So he's a very large, long, skinny black cat with a very long, excessively long tail. And Odin has one of those like Egyptian-shaped heads. Very elegant looking kitty. So moving on, people think he's a Bombay. I'm like, nope, he's just a Brooklyn street cat. So moving on to stories Fox News ignored. It's not so bad this week because everything's election. So every week I compare the hours I've watched on Fox with 5 hours of the PBS NewsHour. The following are stories PBS covered that Fox News did not. We're going to start with the Ukraine war. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin underscored the imperative for countries around the globe to stand in defense of Ukraine's freedom and sovereignty in an address at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine in Kyiv, marking his fourth visit to Ukraine since taking office. In a razor-thin majority, voters in Moldova voted yes on a referendum to join the European Union. It's a whole process. They're just beginning it, but that's exciting. Russian forces have been trying to infiltrate Moldova because it's not in NATO. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres shook hands with Putin at a recent BRICS conference in Kazan, Russia. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky rejected a visit Guterres had planned after the gesture. Climate disasters. So Tropical Storm Oscar dumped heavy rains on Cuba. Oscar was a Category 1 hurricane with winds of 75 miles per hour when it made landfall. Tropical Storm Trami caused major flooding and mudslides in the Philippines, leaving at least 85 people dead and 41 others missing. Moving on to the rest. The Biden administration proposed a new rule that would expand the coverage of over-the-counter contraception without cost sharing. Under the proposed rule, for the first time, women could be able to obtain over-the-counter contraception without a prescription at no additional cost. 5 men who were once known as the Central Park Five are suing Donald J. Trump for him making false and defamatory remarks that he's made about them. The men, who were teenagers at the time, were falsely convicted of a brutal rape in Central Park in the late 1980s. At the time of their arrest, the men confessed to the crime under duress. They were eventually exonerated when another man with a long history of rape charges confessed to the crime. Bucome County officials in North Carolina accidentally overcounted the deaths from Hurricane Helene. Previously, 72 deaths were reported. Officials believe the number was closer to 42. A new law, Click to Cancel, by the Federal Trade Commission, FTC, will make it easier for consumers to cancel subscriptions and recurring memberships. Cuban officials were struggling to restore power after a power plant failure and storms. The electrical grid has collapsed 4 times in the past week. PBS produced a segment focused on how election officials are preparing for harassment and threats. Striking workers at Boeing rejected the company's last contract after a 6-week walkout. The troubled company also posted a $6 billion loss in the last quarter. American Airlines was fined $50 million for its treatment of people with disabilities. The investigation uncovered the company mishandled thousands of wheelchairs. The company has since spent $175 million in services, infrastructure, training, and new technology to help ease their journey and transport their specialized equipment. The U.S. intelligence community is warning that Russia, Iran, and China will intensify their efforts to divide Americans and undermine confidence in the election. The owner of the cargo ship that struck and destroyed the Francis Scott Key Bridge paid a settlement of $103 million to the U.S. Justice Department to settle a federal lawsuit in the case. 6 men working on the bridge were killed during the accident. The Biden-Harris administration is taking action to further reduce lead exposure by issuing a final Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, rule to strengthen requirements for the removal of lead paint dust in pre-1978 housing and child care facilities. President Biden made a formal apology to the descendants and survivors of Indian boarding schools. The goal of the schools was to eliminate Native American culture and languages. For 150 years, children at the schools were subject to sexual and physical abuse and often crowded in unhealthy conditions. An Interior Department report found that at least 973 Native American children died due to malnutrition and disease while the schools were still operating. Chinese hackers targeted phones on the Trump and Harris presidential campaigns. People affiliated with the campaigns were also targeted. It's unclear if the devices were actually compromised. The Washington Post decided not to make a presidential endorsement for the first time in 36 years. The decision to not make an endorsement came from Jeff Bezos, the billionaire owner and executive chairman of Amazon. The paper faced intense backlash, with a reported 200,000 subscribers canceling their digital subscriptions in the past few days. Phil Lesh, the bassist for the Grateful Dead, died at the age of 84. Lesh founded the band with his friend Jerry Garcia, a banjo player and guitarist. Lesh was still playing music a few months before his death. Fernando Valenzuela, a Mexican-born Major League player, has died at the age of 63. Valenzuela was a pitcher in major leagues for 17 seasons, 10 of which were for the LA Dodgers. He remains among the franchise leaders in wins at 141, strikeouts at 1,759, innings pitched at 2,348 and 2/3, and starts at 320, complete games at 107, shutouts at 29. After he retired, he worked for Spanish language broadcaster for the Dodgers. Thelma Mothershed Ware has died at the age of 83. She was one of 9 students confronted by the Arkansas National Guard after arriving to integrate Little Rock Central High School. The National Guard was sent to protect the angry white mob, not the children. She went on to become a teacher and career counselor. She was awarded the Congressional Gold Medal by President Clinton in 1999, along with the rest of the Little Rock Nine. And of course, that was not mentioned on Fox News, which is utterly shameful. So moving on to By the Numbers. None of those stories were on Fox. None of them. By the Numbers. Here we go. We're going to start with the top 5 topics on Fox News last week. That would start with blatant promotion of Trump, 39%. So it is very much the Trump channel right now. Bashing of Kamala Harris, 34%. Tim Walz bashing, 3%. So we're looking at almost 75% around there, rough estimate, of the channel was just dedicated to that. 3% candidate endorsements. They're starting to endorse candidates in Senate races, and then border crisis. I will add, for the midterms, they spent a lot more time and effort focusing on all these specific races. This year, it's Trump or nothing. They don't seem to care about any of the other races. They don't care. They just don't care. So next up, we got PBS, top 5 topics. The election, 18%. Author profile, people talking about their books, 9%. Israel-Hamas war, 9%. Election reform in Montana, that was a very specific story about nonpartisan primaries, something they want to try. We'll see if that happens, 4%. And get this, drumroll please, 4%, the cognitive decline of Donald J. Trump. No kidding. Okay, words used on Fox for the week ending October 27, 2024. Trump at a staggering 721. By comparison, Kamala, only 327. Biden, 222. The word election, 171. Israel, 169. Border, 148. McDonald's, because, 111 times. 111 times. That's bonkers. Iran, 95. Hitler, 79. Economy, 60. Fascist, 49. Inflation, 43. Hillary, 34. AOC, 6. And China, 6. And that's the podcast. Odin is now sleeping on my lap. He wants me to go to bed. It'll happen eventually. I don't know. I'm keyed up. It's been a stressful couple weeks. So thank you for listening. If you'd like to see more of my work, you can go to Threads, Twitter, also known as X, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, not so much with TikTok, Blue Sky, new horizons there. And if you'd like to become a paid subscriber, I always need paid subscribers. You can go to my Substack, Decoding Fox News, my Patreon for Decoding Fox News, or I also have the Venmo link that's in my bio in the linked tree for Twitter, also known as X. And you can also listen to a version of this podcast on the Resolute Square YouTube channel. And my cats, Odin and Thor, the mascots of the podcast, send their love. I might have a couple bonus podcasts this week. We'll see how I hold up. I wish I could just erase sleep from my life. I'd get more done. It's that kind of a week. Thank you for listening. I'll see you at the next podcast.
Resolute Square.